before we started recording, you obviously said it's been quite a while since we last spoke, like literally years. So it's obviously been a lot that's happened since then. It's been a gradual process, but live music is finally back. You've got a new album out. I was looking through like your Facebook feeds, and like you earned a Greg's Black Card. It's quite exciting. You've played with bands like Press Club, and you've been interviewed by Craig Charles as well. So those are just a few of the things that have changed since we last spoke. So I don't know if there's any other highlights that you're particularly proud of.
Oh, there's loads of highlights. So last time we spoke, we just released Hope Rituals. Is that right?
Yeah.
We've welcomed another member into the band. That's pretty good. That's a huge highlight,
Yeah.
Our friend called Ian plays with us now, and that I can't quite remember when that was. Maybe about a year ago, maybe. And he joined us, and that's kind of yet again given us like a refreshed kind of. He didn't record the album, but it's for the live shows. He's joined us and beyond into the future, and it's kind of given like the ever-changing phantom of WACO another chapter. That's what it feels like with Ian. So that's a highlight for me. James, anything?
Yeah. Well, I think when we spoke, maybe the album number 2 would come out, but we hadn't played it yet because we were struggling to get out there and tour. So obviously we hit the road at the earliest opportunity, and we've just been trying to stay busy on the live circuit. And yes, we've been around the UK. I haven't made it to Scotland. I still can't believe it that we haven't been to Scotland in the last couple of years, and it's been ages since WACO were in Scotland. So yeah, so then Cruxy joined us and started to play live. We had the newest album recorded for a little while, and we were wondering the best plan to release that. And that came out this September. We've been touring that a little bit, as you say, bumping into people like Craig Charles along the way. We've been making more music videos. We always like doing that. It's a really good outlet for us. Lots of a chance to be creative, and we've just been trying to churn things out as much as we can. Really, we keep writing music, we keep making videos, we play when we can, and we're just grinding away.
And eating lots of sausage rolls.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the like you said, that the live music coming back. It has come back. It definitely has come back. It feels a bit different, to be honest, in some ways. Not negatively, but it kind of feels. I don't know. It just feels a bit like it feels like it's taken a slow. We're slowly getting back to what it was like. You know what I mean? Like, obviously, because COVID's still around and people are a bit cautious. But it just feels like a kind of, there's some gigs early on when gigs could happen that I went to, and I was a bit like, this is weird. And I think some people are still gradually feeling that, or have been over the past couple of years. So it feels good that festivals and stuff like that are back, to be honest. And it's weird because, I think we've done a lot. We've done as much as we can gig-wise since the gates have opened again. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it does feel like there's been a huge shift, though. I think everyone who plays music or is involved in putting on music is worried about sales and worried about how an event's going to go, and will it look like it's going to be terrible, and then suddenly you sell loads of tickets last minute. So there's a new landscape, definitely.
Is there a new crowd that's coming to see you guys now? Like, have you noticed any changes with regards to that?
Well, do you know what? In some of the gigs, I have actually people that have never seen us before, seeing us for the first, and are fans, not just discovering us, but never seen us before, seeing us over the past year or so. I've noticed that. And, I part of me thinks, obviously I'm so glad to have them on board and have them at the gigs, but also I'm thinking, oh, this is quite cool. People are finding out about us, people who've liked us for a while, probably. If you got into us during the pandemic, for example, it's like, it's been a bit of a delayed drop for them to hear those Hope Ritual songs and then the new songs live. So, new crowd, definitely. We play places that we've never played before, and there are people there wearing our T-shirts. I can't believe it. T-shirts that I made in my backyard, tie-dye style, like that always blows my mind. But also stuff like, James, remember the barbershop gig we did in London, the last London gig we did? It was like rammed, and like I knew a few people, but like I recognized a few faces from other gigs, but mostly it was people that we didn't know, that are new fans or just found us. So gigs like that are a full room of kind of new faces, and they're singing along, never ceases to blow my mind. This long into our career, because we've been going for quite a while. For a long, but then I guess we always strive to play places that we haven't played before, venues we haven't played before, tour with bands we haven't. So, for example, this weekend we're playing Stafford, and we've not played there before, so potentially all new faces. So yeah, like it's a new crowd. This is no shade on promoters, because I guess they have a lot of pressure, and they don't want to. Everyone's struggling money wise. However, we were at the receiving end of what was a shit situation last time we were on tour, and we managed to turn it around. And it's quite a funny story, because it was like, no, it wasn't the last tour, it was this time last year, but we had a gig cancelled on the day. It was a Sheffield gig cancelled on the day, and we were freaking out. Well, freaking out's a bit dramatic. We were feeling miserable in the back of the van, because we weren't going anywhere, because we got in the van and we were like, well, where the fuck do we drive, And then we managed to like book a gig. We managed to get on, honestly, 5 lads on their phones in the back of a van, driving north, not even just nothing in the sat nav, just let's go. Let's drive north. All of us phoning venues, emailing venues from our phones, phoning mates in Sheffield, phoning mates in Manchester. And then we managed to get a venue, Shakespeare's. And they were like, yeah, cool. You can have the venue's free tonight. And we're like, thank God for that, because we were meant to be playing Sheffield anyway. And so we've re-edited the poster. I think we did that on our phone as well. We edited the poster so we had a new venue on there. We phoned a few other mates, musician friends, our friend Grief World, he played, and our other friend Arms and Hearts, who are great musicians. It wasn't like a mates fest. It was like, who do we know who's local, who's fucking shit hot, So we gave them a call, and this is not down to us being an amazing band or fantastic organisers. It was a joint effort, a team effort. The room was packed out. People went crazy for it.
Brilliant.
Like it was like, so that kind of thing was like, God, people still want to go to gigs. Like that room was full. People still want to go there. People still want to, do something spontaneous. Oh, that band's playing. Oh, do you want to play a gig tonight? Do you want to do this, that, and the other? And so I always knew this, actually. Sorry. I think other people feared it, like during the pandemic, and that people's desire to go to gigs might wane. They might get used to staying in all the time. They might want to get stuck into Netflix series. But I just thought that desire to go and see live music or live performance in any way, theatre, whatever, that'll take a lot of killing in people. Even a pandemic hasn't done that. I think people still want to go out. People still want to go to gigs. And that was a good example of it. Because I was like, right, at least we've got somewhere to play. And then the room was packed, and it was Grief World fans, Arms and Hearts fans, WACO fans. So basically what I'm trying to say is we don't need the promoters. We can do it ourselves.
There's a bit of a magic there, isn't there? Just all these people united by the need to go and see some live music. It's very cool, isn't it?
Definitely.
You guys mentioned obviously releasing kind of Hope Rituals in the sort of the midst of the pandemic. Was there something kind of cathartic about actually getting the chance to play those songs live?
Yeah, I really think so. James, what do you reckon?
Do you remember what the first gig back was? I'm just trying to think what it might have been.
Was it December at the Black Heart in Camden?
Maybe that was a good one. I think we did a couple in the build up to that, but then we kind of like peaked then, and that was the final one. But yeah, it was awesome. Honestly, like as you can probably imagine, we were waiting to do that for such a long time, and it'd been quite weird. But when I look at that album now, I think some of those songs we might not do some of those songs live, because it was very much a kind of like a studio tinkering kind of album with strings and lots of different stuff going on. So we've kind of taken the most rocky songs from the album and we play those ones live. We were always desperate to do that. And then there's some that will probably, I don't know, they might see the light of day if we get some other musicians in and help us arrange them properly. But there's some that I would struggle to play live, right, Jack? Like some of them are pretty tricky and hard songs.
yeah, definitely. Like stuff, like, because it got quite experimental. I guess kind of because it was written in lockdown, and we didn't even practice in rooms very much with each other because of the the danger of potentially passing COVID around. So it was a lot of like bedroom rock star shit. And then we got into the studio and it was like all of us just experimenting and kind of getting stuff down. But playing them live, as James said, we handpicked the kind of rock ones, or the ones that we thought could translate well live, and they go down really well. They feel fresh and new to us because of that delayed thing where we were like, no one's heard this, and then you play it live for the first time, and as I've talked about earlier, people know the words already, but it's because they've had it for 2 years, Yeah. So it's kind of it's a total trip. But then now we're playing new songs, and actually a lot of the set is mainly this album and the last album at the minute, with a couple of oldies thrown in there. But it feels really good to kind of just keep the cogs turning, really keep the wheels going with WACO.
So what about the new album then? It still sounds unmistakably WACO, but Hope Rituals felt like a bit more of a sort of genre mashup, whereas Rock Spirit Absolute Joy feels a bit more like its own thing. What was the philosophy behind the new album?
I think that it's all going to be post-rationalization, because we kind of didn't work in that way. We had some songs we were itching to get into the studio and record, and we just got together and started playing. So there wasn't really a strategic like goal in the beginning, but then quickly when things started to fall into place, we noticed that there was a tone and a mood that had been captured, and then that's kind of around the time we settled on the title, just because it felt like we knew the songs were rocking really hard, and also that kind of like joyous feeling that we wanted to pass on. We chose the title around that time, and then it started to hang together. So there wasn't really a philosophical strategic decision in the beginning. I don't know if we'll ever work that way. We've just kind of like, when you listen back to what we've done, it's like a reflection, illustration of how we were all feeling at the time, things that were on our mind, what we were thinking about, and you only get to really see the patterns and stuff afterwards.
I agree. With James, it kind of became clear that it was a rock. It was like a kind of it's kind of like classic rock inspired punk rock, but like a lot of our stuff I would say is, but this is like perhaps more cohesive in sound. It kind of emerged that way. I love it. I think it's great. I think it's really kind of. I feel like we've taken bits of the stuff, music that I really love. Like not just listening to classic rock bands and hard rock bands, being like, oh, let's try and make a song that's a bit like that. Actually,
yeah.
And then and obviously it doesn't sound like Journey, or it doesn't sound like Bachman Turner Overdrive, but it's like us creeping into that area, or trying to. I don't know what it sounds like to anyone else, but for me, that's what it sounds like.
I remember when we were finishing the songs, we were shouting out to each other like, "Oh my god, it sounds like!" And then, I've actually just pulled up the list of the bands that we were all shouting out to each other, because I wrote it down because it was so funny. We had Rancid, Coldplay, Men at Work. Someone's like, sounds like Incubus meets Extreme.
Actually, I got that. I got that, the Extreme reference out of is it Next Romance? That's I got that.
That's a compliment. Cheers. Yeah, there's it's kind of like we really have fun, but I think I spoke to James about this before, and he was like, it's like rock. It's like an umbrella of rock, but like kind of exploring the different types of rock that we like. If you hadn't heard the album, it probably sounds like it'd be really naff, like really crap. But it's I think it's rock. It's all the things that we like about rock, punk rock, hard rock, swamp rock, all these things. In an album, so that's what we tried to do. Like there's air guitar, best of air guitar albums, like 20 years ago. It's like that, but done by a DIY punk band from London.
There's a really good one of them. It's like the top one, and it must be a 2000s one, because it's got the Darkness on there and some of the old stuff. It's like an absolute beauty.
I used to have one that opened with One Vision by Queen.
Jesus.
Nice. Fucking blew my mind, man. The solo is crazy on that as well.
They always become available around about Father's Day. I think they must be like pitched as like the kind of perfect Father's Day present.
it's dad rock as well. I think we threw that phrase around a few times, dad rock. But one thing was certain, we like, one thing we did choose was that there was kind of nothing was off the table. Any idea was worth seeing through to completion, and we don't really care about having a cohesive album of songs where everything sounds like it's in a genre niche. We'd much rather be like experimenting, doing mad shit. Do it because there's not a huge number of bands who are willing to do that, and I think that's what we do best, really. Switching things up and keeping it interesting.
Yeah, true. We even got a review in Classic Rock magazine. Would you believe it? I don't know what they when that landed on one of their music critics' desk. He must have thought, "What the fuck is this?" but it was that, like, you know, after reviewing like the unearthed Jimi Hendrix tapes or whatever they do in there, which I do like Classic Rock magazine. A lot of the bands are very classic rock, but they gave us they were really kind to us. They gave us like what did they say? It was like too rock for the punk world or something like that. It was a sweet like take on it, and they seemed to really like the album. So we've made it in the Classic Rock magazine. I don't know what that means for our future, but it can only be good.
we got some reviews that were like redefining the expectations of what British punk music can be. Life-changing album, must hear, and then 6 out of 10. We get a lot like that.
It's fun to start putting them in the set though now, like putting the new ones in the set.
How have they been going down?
People love The World.
Yeah,
that's a proper earworm.
Where you are. People love it.
How do you get on performing that key change?
Oh,
there's some pretty wild key change in that song.
Oh yeah. Well, we get on somehow. We work in a funny way. I don't know if bands do this, but we kind of we write, and then we go in the studio, we write even more. And then when it comes to time to play it live, we kind of relearn it, because some of the ideas come to us in the studio, and some of the parts of it kind of change in the studio in a good way. And then we kind of go, oh, we're going to play a few gigs. Like, how do you play that again? How do you sing that again? So you kind of, it's quite fun. It's quite a fun process to do. The World goes down really well. What else have we got in there?
Barry Gibb.
Oh my God. Yeah. People go ham for Barry Gibb Was My Landlord. I feel like we've done our bit for putting the Bee Gees back in the public psyche.
Public conscious.
Yeah, public consciousness, yeah.
There's a couple of the new tunes that we haven't got in the set yet that I want to get in, but we might have to leave that until see what happens next year. Next time we're out, I think we'll freshen the setup a little bit.
While we're on Barry Gibb, we've got a little funny story actually that nobody knows. We went to Barry Gibb's house, which is where James used to live, because Barry Gibb used to be James's landlord, as the song says. It's not a metaphor or anything, it's the truth. And we revisited, because obviously James knew where it was. And we thought, hey, we're going to knock on the door and see who lives there now, because we thought they might think it's funny that we've written a song about their house and their landlord. Like, that'd be funny, right? If you got the knock on the door, that'd be like unexpected.
Yeah.
And then there was nobody home, so we posted a note through the door saying, we're called WACO, and we wrote a song about Barry Gibb being your landlord, and our guitarist used to live here, and we didn't hear anything from them for weeks. And then we got a letter back. We got a message on Instagram back from them, and they're all posing outside, and it was like 5 women that live there now. I think it was like youngish, so maybe students or just graduated. And they sent one back saying, yeah, we love the song. We love Barry Gibb is our landlord, and thanks for the letter, which is so weird, which is so funny. I kind of wish we'd met them as well, because it's kind of quite like handing the torch on to the next Barry Gibb tenants, passing the torch.
So is he still the landlord?
Yeah, so he owns that house. Yeah, it's the house where the family, where the Bee Gees grew up when they were living in Manchester, and then when he got established and had the money to, he bought the house, and he owns it now and rents it out.
I just imagine them all kind of walking around that house talking to each other in like falsetto. It's very kind of weird atmosphere.
It definitely has a vibe, yeah.
James, you were obviously interviewed by Lister himself about that story. I mean, personally, I think I would have shit myself talking to Craig Charles, but how did you get on with that? You seemed quite cool and collected about the whole thing.
Yeah.
Oh, cheers. Well, I do have some advice. If you're going to be interviewed by Craig Charles, try and keep the coffee intake low, because I think it was like 11:45 we had the meeting, and I was like too nervous to eat any breakfast. I got on the coffees. I think I had 3 or 4 coffees, and I was pretty wired and a bit pranged out when the time came for the call. I was very nervous, to be honest, guys. But also, we were kind of going into an environment where I didn't feel that welcome, really. I felt like Craig was a bit reluctant to talk to us, and I think he was a bit skeptical about the band and the idea of it all. But his producer, Helen, who's a real legend, was kind of getting him to warm to the idea, saying, "Come on, Craig, like, these guys are fun. They've got a cool song. Talk to them and see how it goes." So that was the setup, and that's what I was walking into. Kind of had some winning over to do. Anyway, when we got chatting, we hit it off and relaxed into it quite fast. So I think he gets it now. He thinks we're weird as fuck, but he gets it. And then, funnily enough, a few days after that, we were heading out on the road, and the first gig of the tour was in London. And we did that. Jack mentioned it earlier. We played in our friend's Barbers in Soho, Wacky Barbers. And we were setting up to go on. I think there were 4 bands on the bill, and 3 bands had played. WACO were just getting ready to go on. Craig Charles walked past. People ran over to us as we were setting up, saying, "You won't believe who's outside. Craig Charles is outside." And he was on his way. Had his records with him, and he was on his way to a DJing gig in London. And we tried to drag him inside, and there wasn't time. But weird bit of like coincidence, serendipity. I think if he'd had the time, he would have. You spoke to him, right, Jack? Did you?
Yeah, I ran outside and grabbed him, and I was like, "Oh, mate!" I was like, "I play in WACO, and you played our song like a few days ago. Barry Gibb was my landlord." And he was, "Oh, cool." And it was like quite awkward thing where I was like, where it first appeared that he'd come to the gig, but he hadn't. He was just happened to be walking past, and I was like, "Have you come for the gig?" And he goes, No, I've got my own gig in Soho. I was like, Anyway, nice to meet you. And I said, thanks for playing us. And he was sweet. He said, it's a great song.
Nice.
And then he kind of wriggled out of my grip and then ran off.
Probably a good thing he didn't come inside, because it was crazy in there. He would have got clattered. There were people swinging off the light fixture, tearing lights off the ceiling.
Yeah.
Slipping over on a beer-soaked floor. It was, it was a good one to remember that night.
I think he's a bit of a metalhead, isn't he? Oh, he's known to be a bit of a metalhead, right?
I think so.
Like, he was wearing some leather in the Red Dwarf days. I think he was a bit of a
biker.
Yeah,
biker from outer space. Like that is a trip, really. Like, after like all the amazing achievements that that I'm so proud of, and that I feel like amazing to be part of. Being interviewed on Radio 6 by Craig Charles wasn't on the list of things that I wanted for our band. It was totally out of the blue. And it turned out that he lived on the same street as the Bee Gees. Like, that's what he said to James on the phone.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Keppel Road. Yeah, I used to live there as well. I think, fucking hell, what's going on in this street? Something, the best street in Manchester. He probably lived there when the Bee Gees lived there. Well, how old is he? Probably, maybe not.
No, it wasn't. It was later on in his. Yeah. It was when he was doing Corrie.
Legend.
I was going to ask you about another one of the great songs from the album. So, Elevation. I absolutely love that song. I think the sound from the guitars amazing. I really enjoyed it. But I was going to ask you about the video for that song, and it feels like a bit of a tribute to the John Carpenter classic They Live, and it seems to have been kind of filmed primarily in a kind of guerrilla type fashion. And I was just going to ask you what the kind of idea behind that was, and whether you kind of ran into any difficulties, or was it just, one of these things, just a kind of average day in London and nobody really paid you much attention?
It's a good film, They Live, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a great film, yeah.
Well, we had the idea to do the John Carpenter video, let's do a They Live rip, and our friend Paul Blue was going to direct it and shoot it. And then we set up a WhatsApp group, sent some ideas around, kind of had a bit of a storyboard ready. And then I rewatched They Live, and it had all of this stuff in the film that I was like, oh, I actually don't remember this being in the film. Because all of the cool stuff with the dark glasses and the hidden messages all happens in the beginning. And then it turns into a bit of a adventure thriller with explosions and gunfights and stuff and like fist fights. And I was like, oh, I don't remember any of this actually. All of the cool iconographic stuff we wanted to borrow was actually just from the first act. So that's the bit that we paid homage to. The shoot, people just left us to it, to be honest. It was in the City of London, which I don't know if you know, it has its own police force. It has its own, it's not the London Metropolitan Police. It has its own mad little kind of like secret service that looks after the City of London. But they left us alone. I think we were just too weird to approach because everyone there, I can't remember what day of the week it was, but it was just like a normal business day. Everyone was going about their business, getting their Pret lunches and going in Itsu and doing their thing. And we were just there wearing like face paint and camouflage, jumping over barriers and running upstairs. And yeah, they left us to it, didn't they?
Yeah. It's funny. I think that like the camera's not massive either that Paul was filming on. If someone looks at us and sees us filming in the City of London, which would have cost a lot of money to get a permit for, it would have cost a lot of money if we did that. But we didn't do that. And I think people would assume that we did if they worked for it. They would assume that we'd got a permit, or they just think we're weird and just leave us alone. But people weren't that bothered in London. It was fun. Yeah, as James said, it's quite a complicated film in that there's like a group of like rebels in it who take Rowdy Roddy Piper under their wing, and he kind of becomes part of that group. And that led on to all sorts of other things with WACO. I was running with that idea even further. That area of London looks futuristic, soulless, corporate. It's everything we needed for those scenes. So it was really fun to film. And I think we did quite a good job. If you get the reference, it's great. If you don't get the reference, then it's kind of, oh, that's quite interesting. And we, like some of the stuff we saw, one of the signs we saw on an office was welcome home. I mean, welcome to work. And that was a series. We didn't put that there. It was a sign on an office. And it was like, Jesus Christ, how bleak is that? You know what I mean? Like, welcome home. Haha, not really. You're at work. Like, you know, like it's like Jesus Christ. Like John Carpenter called it like 40 years ago. Like it's kind of those things. Basically, we didn't have to do much to make it look like a soulless capitalist shithole. It did all the work for us, basically. Yeah, it was fun. That was a fun one. Thanks for the kind words about the song, Grant. It was
that's great.
It's I love that one. We tried to channel the Cars in the band. I love the Cars. We tried to get a bit of that in the guitars in the verses, and then a bit of Weezer in the chorus, and then a bit of fuck knows at the end of it. Who knows? Bit of rock and roll.
Yeah, it goes totally like full on hardcore at the end. So
yeah,
I love that bit at the end.
Cheers, man.
One of my favourite songs is Hardships Will Happen. I've kind of described it as a sort of surf rock with dream pop and classic rock, but I think you guys said it took inspiration from like Billy Idol and Sublime and Iron Maiden, which is a pretty mental collection of influences. But again, you've got a video for that, which I think the original idea was to have some kind of Mad Max meets the Warriors concept, but your van broke down or something. What happened there?
I've got quite a few stories to tell from this past couple of years. Nothing seems to go exactly to plan, which is life, I guess. Hardships will happen, you know, as they say. But this one was quite funny, actually. Considering the lyrics of the song that we were doing, the video for, it really put that to the test in real time. Hardships happen, but help us grow. Because we had this idea of a chase scene, a kind of Mad Max Fury Road, like live band playing in the back of a van. And it was a great idea. And it was quite intimidating because it was like, we don't have any of the budget or any of the know-how of these Hollywood chase scenes, but we're just watching them and trying to reverse engineer how they do it. So it was quite intimidating, but we were all confident of doing it and we were ready to go. And we were in the van on the way there. You have to have two vans, obviously. Band in one van or characters in one van, and another van behind filming. We had to have two vans, basically, which in itself it's hard to coordinate. You know, it's even adding one more person to a video shoot is hard to organise. And then what happened, James?
So we drove out to Dungeness on the south coast, which is England's only desert. We thought we were looking for some kind of like open space close to London where we could do some filming and be left alone. And it is quite remote. We got out there and one of the bands broke down, and it was brutally windy, freezing cold day. It must have been this time last year, and it was just a write-off. So I think we had a couple of hours of, by the time we organised what we needed to organise with the AA and getting towed and stuff like that, we had about 90 minutes, if that, of sunlight left, and we had to think of another plan. So we ended up just like letting, again, that was our mate Paul, shoot that again and just do his thing, make it look as good as possible. And we'll do like a to camera, more classic, like Backstreet Boys singing on the beach video. But because of the light and the stormy day, it looks really beautiful. And yeah, we kind of like made the best of a bad situation. We got a great story out of it. Some of the lads managed to walk, or they got a lift to the train station and left. Me and Jack stayed with Deck, who was driving that day, and waited for the tow truck. So we jumped in this AA tow truck and had a Burger King with the tow truck driver. And then we could get towed back to somewhere in Essex so that the van could go to a garage. Then we drove to the practice room in London. I remember we were listening to Dan P. Carter on the Rock Show in the car. It was just all like, you know, those memories will last forever. And it was, even though it was a complete disaster when you compare it to what we originally planned, it turned out great. And people like that song, people like the video. That's one of my favourite songs. It's hard to play live. It took us a few goes to get it to hit our stride with that one, but I really enjoy it now.
The video it's just one of those things some things are out of your control. A lot of things are out of your control. The van breaking down was one big thing that was out of our control. But with a bit of mindfulness, you can control how you react to a situation, you know. And it was teetering on the edge of like, let's just scrap the whole thing, pay the lads for their time, and just go home. We'll not do a video. But there was like, I think it was the dying sunlight, wasn't it, James? Where it was like, oh shit, when it gets dark, then we definitely can't do it. You know, we won't be able to do anything. So it was like had a little bit of a time limit. So we chose, despite being disappointed, deflated, we collectively chose that the best thing for us to do was to film something and just use what was right there in front of us, a roaring ocean with wind and sun and sunset, and so it put us to the test a little bit, to be fair. But then we just laughed all the way home, me and James, just giggling at the situation more than anything. Freezing cold in the back of this tour van, like, oh god, this is classic WACO.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I think similar to the story you told us before about rearranging that gig at short notice, it's quite impressive. You kind of just, these things go wrong and you've managed to kind of pull them together.
It's calamitous sometimes, but it's like just the sort of people we are, really. And our friends who were with us on the journey, whether it's those lads who were with us in the vans that day or the mates who came and played with us in Sheffield, our friends are like, have the same mentality and mindset. So if we want to make something happen, they're all kind of have that optimism as well. So everyone who's in the crew is of a similar mindset, and we get things done together.
Yeah.
I was just going to ask you kind of what the next plan for the band was, but obviously it would be coming to Scotland to play a show.
Well, yeah, definitely, and that's not a joke. We really want to do that. So we've got a few more dates coming up before the year is out, including playing in Southampton with Our Time Down Here, which we're really looking forward to that one, and also a big party in London for the 10-year anniversary of Ben Records.
Oh yeah, I did see that.
Whoa.
It's going to be a beaut. So on that with Out of Love, Meryl Streak and Street Grease doing their first gig in London. So looking forward to that. And then that's it for us touring for this year. And then next year we just want to get out and play the album more. So that will involve some of those, you know, parts of the UK and Ireland that we've not been able to get to. We really want to tick those off and hopefully get out to Europe. Fingers crossed for that. If we can get the right hook up, we'd really love to do that next year as well.
Yeah, for sure.
And then there'll be some new songs kind of like floating up, I'm sure. You know, we recorded this album a good while ago now, and it's only a matter of time before new songs start to become, you know, more than just like little, you know, ideas that you can't hang on to any longer. You need to get them down. And then we'll see. We'll take it from there.
Yeah.
It's not finished. It's finished.